Prep's hydration is a revolutionary product helping athletes across many sports to improve performance and recovery. Prep is based on over 20 years of medical science, is an SA company, and is also a product that has great health benefits due to its prebiotic nature. Last week, Prep won the prestigious Innovative Product of the Year award. Amazing stuff. And they were presented by the Australian Institute of Food Science and Technology. They went to some awards over there at the Crown Casino and apparently had a very good night. For more information, go to prepshydration.com.au.
Hi guys, Anthony Koutoufides, 278 games, AFL Hall of Famer, and you're watching Sports Legends with Bevo.
Well, what an absolute pleasure it is to have a man who played 278 games for the Blues, represented his state as well. 2014, he was an inductee into the AFL Hall of Fame, and of course a premiership player with the Blues in '95. Anthony Koutoufides, great to have you on Sports Legends with Bevo.
Thanks, Bevo. Great to be on, mate. I appreciate you asking me.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Now let's talk about your beloved Blues. Before we speak about the season, I've got to give a shout out to Andrew, who's sponsoring this episode, does a great job with a company called Prepped, and he's a huge Blues fan. Obviously, a bit disappointing in the end for the Blues how it ended, but really good signs going into 2023. Hey, Kouta.
Well, I thought our finals were cemented many weeks before the finals, and that's how confident I was with the boys. The first half of the season was just unbelievable. I mean, at one stage, looking at 8-0, of course it didn't occur, but just their start of the season that they had, I never thought that they could fall away as much as they did. But look, they had a lot of injuries, so there's a few excuses there, reasons why I guess they didn't make finals at the end. But, I just thought it was a little bit disappointing that they didn't, but hopefully we'll know in the next year or two. Hopefully they bounce back from it because they really do have quite a good team now, and they've got some elite players in that team. And 1, 2, 3, and 4 more players and a little bit of improvement from some young guys. And, I have a real belief that this team can go a long way. And after watching Geelong do what they did, in the 2022 grand final, Geelong were probably the only team that really dominated the Blues. Other than that, I reckon they stood their own with the majority of the teams, including Sydney. So they're not too far away, but then again, they've got to play finals footy next year.
It must have been pretty heartbreaking as well, losing to the arch rival in the most difficult of circumstances, and then knowing, like you said before, you were so close to playing finals, and then just like that, damn Collingwood. Any team that could have knocked you out had to be Collingwood, didn't it?
It was our own fault. I mean, we lost Adelaide when that was one we should have really penciled in, but Adelaide were great on the day. The Melbourne game too, basically with a minute and a half there, I'm sitting there thinking we are in the finals, and then I don't know what happened. Then we lost. And then, of course, Collingwood. So I was there that day and I spoke at the MCG with Peter Dacos in both the Carlton and Collingwood rooms. And we're watching all the old highlights in the Carlton rooms, and Carlton would just do what Collingwood did to them that day, back in the day. No matter how far in front Collingwood were, Carlton would come back and win. And anyway, the times are obviously a little bit different. And yes, that at the end with Jamie Elliott kicking that goal was the end of us and our footy season. And knowing that Bulldogs won by just enough to get them to have enough percentage to get them into the finals and not us was very disappointing. But, that's sport and that's life. You have to accept it, but you have to really, use that as motivation to get better next year. And hopefully the boys do. But to full credit to Collingwood, I don't know, I guess before the grand final, I thought if they could overcome Sydney, like a lot of people thought, that they had a real chance of beating Geelong. But Geelong on the day were just too dominant, so they probably wouldn't have won. But it would have been an unreal game to see Collingwood and Geelong in the grand final. So Collingwood, full credit. As much as they're the arch enemy, and I give them a bit of shit throughout the year, they are phenomenal. They were phenomenal this year.
Yeah, it was a great story as well. Craig McRae certainly did a wonderful job with them and well-deserved for Coach of the Year. In terms of the grand final, it's a bit of a fizzer in the end, wasn't it? Geelong were just that good.
I said to people, a lot of people thought that Geelong would win anyway, and it would be very hard for Sydney. Like if Sydney continued on their form against Collingwood up the SCG and just dominated them, I would have thought, mate, they've got a real shot here. But you could just see when Collingwood started to get going, Sydney had nothing to throw. So I was always scared that it was, I said, as I spoke throughout the week, I just said, I thought Geelong by 5 goals, but I was always scared it could potentially be a blowout. Sydney couldn't do that to Geelong, but Geelong were capable of doing that to Sydney, and that's what they did. They were just so dominant, played their best game probably of the year on grand final day. A little bit like us, what we did back in 1995 when we dominated Geelong. And Sydney played their worst game of the year, and their leaders just didn't stand up in a day that they really needed their leaders to stand up, and Geelong were just all over the ground, just solid as a rock. They were harder at it, just more cleaner with the ball, and they deserved that victory. Could have easily won by over 100 points, really. So I guess if they really wanted to and decided to do it. But full credit to Geelong. You know, it's been 11 years since their last premiership, and they've been thereabouts for so much of the last 11 years and not quite good enough. And they were just able to do it this year. So well done to them and Joel Selwood. What an absolute class man, player, and leader of that football club.
And yourself personally, 95, you mentioned it before, you had a great win against the Cats. So funny enough, for so long they made those grand finals and they couldn't quite get the job done. How things have changed in recent years. What sort of celebrations did you have back in 95? I'm sure it would have been a bit different to what it's like these days, where you can't seem to get away with anything without people making complaints.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I mean, they were just unbelievable days when I played. And I remember when I retired and the club was building new facilities and people come up to me going, "Oh, Kouta, look what you've missed out on." I'm like, no, I didn't miss out on anything, because I walked in the football club after decades of success and dominance. I walked in the football club that had just leaders everywhere and premiership players led by the greatest president of all, John Elliott. And I never forget that time, because I think of the players that have walked in the footy club in the last 20 years didn't walk into the environment that I did. And that's what people can't take away from me. And I was very, very lucky. So 95, I was a 22-year-old, and halfway through the last quarter, we're up by 80-odd points, and I'm looking around 90-odd thousand people thinking, I cannot believe this, I'm about to be a premiership player here, and we are. When that siren went, I went looking for my good mate Ange. Will Hanna got in the way, shrugged Mill off, and went to see Ange, and mate, we celebrated for many weeks. I celebrated, I reckon it was 5 weeks non-stop. And I went from 95 kilos to 103. You wouldn't do it nowadays. I wouldn't turn back the time. No way for what we did. It was just unbelievable. We had a week in Melbourne, a week in the Gold Coast, and I think another 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks in America. By the time we got home, mate, I had a long pre-season ahead of me, I tell you, and a lot of work to do to trim down the body and the physique after letting loose after the grand final. It was unbelievable times.
Was there dress-ups back in those days as well? Or?
Not like nowadays. And, we just made sure we didn't wear any new clothes, because with no doubt we knew they were going to get trashed. So it was always Norden's on a Monday for us. I think Monday we also went to Lygon Street. I think Sunday we went back to the ground. Saturday night we had a function, and it was on. So our Monday was at Norden's, was always a little bit of fun. And there's some highlights of it with Fraser Brown going a bit crazy, having a few darts, like a couple of the other boys, the cigarettes. And my daughter just seen it a couple of days ago and said, "Dad, have you seen these highlights?" Which I haven't. I said no, because I just wanted to watch them again. And she thought it was very funny.
And yourself personally, Kouta, as well, you're actually a champion track and field athlete. What made you decide to change into footy? And was it because of money in the end? Because I spoke earlier on today, with a friend of mine that we caught up for a coffee with, and we were speaking about how it's so difficult for athletes to be able to afford to be an athlete. And that's why a lot of them changed to footy and other sports where the money, and it's a no-brainer, really. Was that the same as yourself as well?
Yeah, my first year they offered me a contract. I was on $7,800, so it wasn't a lot. I mean, probably still $7,800 more than what athletics would have paid me. I loved athletics, and I had such a great junior career. Australian champion high jumper there for a couple of years, and then I had the Australian record in the 110-metre hurdles. So I won a lot of multi-events, which was like decathlon. And I had an offer from one of the colleges from America to go there and train and become a full-time athlete. But look, at the end of the day, I was already in the Carlton system at the age of 14 with their junior development squads, and then under 19s I played there at Carlton and made the Till Cup team and all that. And at the end of 1990, Carlton offered me a 3-year contract. So I had to decide there and then whether it was athletics or footy. The money was there, the contract was there. I would never have left home to go to college in America on my own. It would have been very difficult. And I thought, as a young kid, I looked at football as like they were gladiators, and everyone loved football. It was a religion here in Melbourne and Victoria. And I just thought, mate, I want to be a footballer now full time. And so that's why I quit athletics. It was a really tough decision, because I loved athletics, and athletics to me was more like, it wasn't an opinion of a person who was better on that day. Athletics is more like there's the start, there's the end. This is the bar there. You jump higher, longer, you're faster, you win, then you're the winner. Whereas football, you get a little bit of, people saying, I think he's a better player or he's better. He could play here, could play there. So it was a little bit of that, but how do you beat team sport too? And the Kouta Football Club was the greatest club in Australia at that time, and so I couldn't say no. And so I signed that contract and gave away my beloved athletics for the first time ever, and had to do my first football pre-season ever as well. And I didn't know what I was in for, but I found out very quickly.
and you've got a business called Koutoufides, and you've got the hoodie there, proudly showing that off. What's the business all about, Kouta, and how can people get involved?
I'm working with the Herbalife Nutrition, which I've been taking the products for 11 years after struggling health-wise 12 years ago. I was lacking energy, had all these health issues. I was really concerned with my health for the first time, and I was eating organic food, and that didn't help. But a friend of mine introduced me to the products and the business, and started taking the products, and within 6 days, the products changed my life. And so I never thought ever the supplements could do what it did, and so I fell in love with the products. And then, of course, after footy, in a time when I was really lost in life and a really low point, I needed to find something that I could go out and achieve and have goals and strive to get better every single day. And so that opportunity with Herbalife allowed that. And so Koutoufides is basically, it's not just the nutrition, it's the fitness side, it's the mindset, it's the complete package. And we do challenges online, and I've got my Koutoufides out there, so I'm training group classes out there 3 times a week out in the northern part of Melbourne, which is Bundoora Mernda. And so our groups aren't as big as what they were before COVID, but it's a start. And I started very humbly back in 2013 with 6 people at my Kouta Fit Club back then, it was known as. And, I grew to over 100 people back then. Not to say I can do it now. It was a little bit different back then. Life was different, and the concept was a little bit different too. But, so I'm hoping to, change people's lives to get them healthier and happier. And I think that's important too. A lot of people struggling with their health, but I don't think it's as complicated as what people make it out to be. And by combining these products with whole food eating and enjoying myself, I get fantastic results. And if it wasn't for my body collapsing around me, with my shoulder being so arthritic and bad and my hip not being great too, I've probably been not the best shape of my life, but in really good shape for someone who's almost 50. So I'm pretty lucky that I found the nutrition, and I love it. I swear by it, and I smash it every single day.
And in terms of the business, people just sort of find you just Googling it, or, do you have a Facebook page and things that people can find out more about it?
Yeah, Bevo, on my Facebook and Instagram, I do a lot of work on Instagram, but they can just inbox me. A lot of people do, and that's why I do a lot of social media. I've never been, a person to put myself out there, but I know with the business and what I do now, people have to know what I do. So I use social media quite a bit. I've got to up my ante a little bit with TikTok because I'm not great at it, but I'm on Instagram and my public Facebook page, and anyone could inbox me and inquire, and happy to help them out.
Terrific. And you're well known for being one of the fittest players in the AFL. What was your secrets to keeping yourself so fit over those years, except we'll forget about 95?
Yeah. The fitness part might be a little bit of a myth, Bevo. I mean, I wasn't great in terms of endurance. What I had was speed and power. In terms of endurance, I had to work really hard at it in my first pre-season, because I was known more of an athlete than a footballer, and they put me into the fastest group, and they just destroyed me. When we had to do 50-100s, I'd never done more than probably 6, and that first time I had to do 50, I was like, what? So we're doing 8-kilometre runs, and I'm down the back, and at the end, it's funny because at the end of that first season in 91, when I didn't get a game, I thought, mate, I've got to put on a little bit of strength and hit the gym properly, and I put on about 8 or 9 kilos. Silly again. My endurance running just went backwards severely, and so I had to really just work hard at it. I was very lucky I had speed and endurance, and those two there did really help me, and I had to work really hard with my endurance. But the secret was just, just training hard, man. The AFL system made me grow as a person, and made me realise that if I wanted to play senior footy, I had to train at an elite level, and no matter how much potential you had or how much ability, that comes down to the hard work that you do. on the track. And so I just trained and, looked around me. I had inspirational leaders and I watched them and seen how they were and learned from them and just got myself a little bit better.
And you represent Victoria as well. We know how strong the Vics have been over the years and the calibre of the players. That must be, a pretty amazing highlight of your career, and getting to play with the likes of Ablett and these sort of guys. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. So the first year, 96, I would have played, but that week, I don't know, we played a game of footy and then I had to do a commercial for Adidas. Somehow I strained my calf. I don't know what happened. And then I don't think the doctors of the Victorian team were too impressed with me, but I don't even know if they actually believed that I had something wrong. I literally couldn't walk. And so that was the year I think I would have played with Ablett and all that, but then I never got that opportunity. But then I got an opportunity in 99. I don't think Ablett was playing then. And I played that day, but it just rained all day. It just wasn't conditions for me. I was a centre back on Nick Holland, and good old Brent Harvey was just able to just rack up that ball and, win the medal for the day as the best player, and he thoroughly deserved it. But, great experience when you're playing with the elite of the elite. It's just so much fun, and I was very lucky and blessed that I had that opportunity to do that before they stopped playing those games.
And in terms of the Blues, who's the best player you ever played with in Kouta?
A guy that came to the under-19s and they sent him home. He went back to Bendigo, won a competition best and fairest, and went to Geelong, and I think he had 30-something possessions in his first game. He may have won a best and fairest there. Then he wanted a bit more money. They didn't want to pay him, so he went to Sydney. Sydney were offering big money. He went there and won a Brownlow, and then we got him back and he won a Brownlow for us too. That was Greg Williams. He was just an unbelievable player. You just walk off the field some days and just go, how did he do that today? And just, you couldn't believe it. You just go, well, only Diesel couldn't do what Diesel could do, But in terms of finals, Stephen Kernahan was the greatest finals player that I played with. He always stood up come finals time, six.
And you got to love his standby my man thing. That's just absolute gold. I think I've watched that over 1,000 times.
Yeah, I know. I've done a couple of sporties with Sticks. He's still not happy with it. He said everyone else was singing and he just, I don't know, by chance he just had to I don't know. Anyway, it got filmed and it's just been replayed over and over and over again. Poor bloke. We all make silly mistakes and I've done them myself, so don't worry. We all cop it.
And you played in the good old era of the 90s. Who are some of the funniest teammates? And did you, some of the pranks that were down at the Blues back in those days, Kouta? Any good ones you want to share?
Oh, there was always pranks going on at the club. We had some absolute characters. One of them was Luke O'Sullivan, the Rhino, we called him. And Barry Mitchell was his partner in crime too. And so they used to even do comedy stints back in the day, and we used to go and watch them and just laugh our heads off. But the first pre-season I did, which I called the murder camp, it was 10 days of, can I say the word hell? It really was. It was SAS kind of style. Well, not maybe like that, but like as intense as what SAS is. And it was training in the morning and the evenings, and that was I had to, last year I did Dancing with the Stars and got filmed up in Sydney, and I had to stay for a couple of weeks after the show finished. And one of the things that I did, I had a friend there that drove me to Narrabeen, to that campsite, because for years, ever since 91, 92 camp, I never ever forgot the torture camp of that place, Narrabeen. So I said if, didn't mind my friend to drive me there just so I can have a look to see what it was like. And it just brought back so many, I won't say fond memories, the opposite of fond, like these memories of just how hard it was over there. And once we finished that camp, that was the first time I ever started drinking alcohol. Of course, everyone drank at the footy club. And Luke O'Sullivan just started with his stints then, and he was just the most hilarious man going around. So I found him very funny, and no matter what he did, he was always had something fun to do. Glenn Manton was also one of my very close mates there at the footy club, and I always found his comedy very funny too. Not everyone probably didn't relate to him, but I did, and he was a very funny man, Mance.
He was great on the footy show, the old Bolt, wasn't he?
Yeah, I thought he was very funny on there. I think some people maybe didn't find him as fun. I'm not sure. He's a great speaker, and I like his humour. He was always very funny ever since I met him from Till Cup days. And if you really get to know him, he's a funny man.
And you played against some of the greatest football players of all time, but who would have been your toughest opponent in Kouta?
Now, my toughest was Richo, and people often go, what, Matty Richardson? He was very tough. When we talk about athletes, I think he was a great athlete. He had both speed and endurance. He was 6'5", he was strong as an ox too, and he would just, they would just open up that forward line for him the 2 times that I played on him. And he was probably, because back in 99, I was pretty much, beating, I think, I don't know, majority all except for Richo, I reckon, in terms of playing him at centre half back. And I had to play more like a fullback, and they just opened up the forward 50 for him. And, mate, I just couldn't keep up with that bloke there, Richo. So to me, Richo was always my toughest opponent.
And in 2014, I mentioned at the start, you were inducted into the AFL Hall of Fame. That must have been one of the, pretty amazing highlights of your career, Kouta, other than winning the premiership.
Yeah, Bevo, like if you delve into my career a little bit in 91, not getting a game in 92, 6 games, 93, 8 games. 1994, I got dropped halfway through the year, and I thought it was the end of my career. And so my career for 3.5 years was like a roller coaster, up and down. I didn't know what I needed to do to play senior footy. I wasn't getting a lot of feedback from the coaches, and it was a very tough time. It wasn't easy for me. And so when I got dropped halfway through 1994, if someone had said to me, Kouta, just persist for a couple more weeks and it will be worth it, because you're going to win best and fairest in All Australian, win a premiership, and at the end of the day, you're going to make the AFL Hall of Fame. I would have thought you're something wrong with you, mate, and go and get yourself checked out. And I think if I had told that to anyone, everyone would have thought the same thing as well. So after being dropped for those 2 weeks, I got picked again 2 weeks later. I went to see sports psychologist Anthony Stewart. Lovely man. He taught me these words: I can, I will, you, just watch me. I used to have to write in my diary at the top every single day and highlight it. He said, you've got to use those words. You've got to go to training with a focus. 3 things you've got to do. If you're going to focus on marking, make sure you go there. And just that there had such an impact on me. And then 2 weeks later, I got picked again on the wing and never looked back from that moment. And so I never would have imagined, making the AFL Hall of Fame at that point there. And then everything started to evolve after that. And, that Hall of Fame really closed everything for me at the end of my career, to think, my goodness me, there was a lot of great players that I played with, and some great players before my time who weren't in the Hall of Fame. And even some that got inducted after me, after playing in the 70s and 80s. And I sit there and pinch myself and think, man, how lucky am I, to be one of those guys out of the group that I played with. I'm not sure out of the group. I mean, the older guys here, your Kernahans, your Bradleys and Sylvanis and Greg Williams. But in the group that I sort of came through with, I don't think there was any other player at Cohen that has made the AFL Hall of Fame as yet. I could be wrong. So I'm very lucky, because, it sort of just says, well, just a little bit, maybe above some other great players that I play with. So, mate, I pinch myself how lucky I am. I'm very, very thankful. I was one of those blessed ones that got back into footy after I retired, although I did try. And unfortunately, I don't know, all the doors were closed. And so everything that I learned from footy hasn't really been probably taught enough to young kids. But hopefully next year, maybe I might help out my young boys footy team even more, and just try to impact some more young kids and help them as much as I possibly can.
Wonderful. And you're way too modest. I think your career definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Absolutely. 278 games. Should have won a Brownlow medal if you didn't do your knee. Premiership player, Victorian player, the list goes on. So, yeah, I think you well and truly deserve it. But, you're way too modest.
No, I appreciate it, Bevo. Look, I know I was favourite that year for the Brownlow. I think in the media I had 13 best on grounds in a row or something crazy like that. That would have equated to 39 votes. But I just want to get it clear on the show is that even if I didn't get injured, I still wasn't in front. Even on that day that I got injured, I finished with 19 votes. So I had to produce some massive games to get 3 votes or any sort of votes really from umpires. It wasn't easy to get a vote from me. I don't know, maybe they couldn't spell my surname. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure what happened that year. But anyway, I look back now, and as every year goes by, you just keep thinking, oh, if only I had just won that. But anyway, life, that's the way things pans out.
Exactly. And just to finish with Kouta, no doubt you would have met some, amazing people over the years. But to finish with one of our favourite segments, Starstruck Celebrities, who have you met over the years that really left you starstruck, and why?
Oh, I met David Beckham once, but that was just really for a photo. Steffi Graf in her day in the 90s when I was sponsored by Adidas, and I met her, and I used to love watching her play. Psycho Sid, the wrestler. I don't know, people probably may not remember Psycho Sid or Sid Vicious. He had a couple of names, and he threw me on his shoulders and squatted me, and that's when I was pretty big back then. So I looked just like a toothpick compared to him. And I met some obviously some Aussie greats and icons and that as well. And I met some great celebrities in my time.
And obviously, I really enjoyed chatting with you today, mate. But how can people book you for sportsmen's events? Because I'd love to get you over to Adelaide one day to do a sportsman's show.
Oh, mate, just call me. Not a problem, Bevo. I love it now. I did in the last 3 months of the footy season. I did so many sporties, and I loved it, man. I was inundated with it, but I enjoyed the talking. It was one of those things when I was younger that I hated public speaking, and I did a post today on my Instagram to say, sometimes you just got to get yourself out of your comfort zone. You never know what's out there, and it's that magic of being out there, and you find something that you do love, and that's what I do now. I love going to sporting events. I love doing business talks to motivation, because, when you look at your careers and the ups and downs, and I talk through it, that people look at my career stats and go, my goodness me, you achieved a lot. And I say, hang on a minute. I'll talk you through what it was like early on in my career as a junior, some of the things I had to sacrifice to get there. And then, of course, the death of my father and some other obstacles that I had to go through to get to where I am now, to make me the person that I am. And so I love talking about that, and of course some of the funny stuff that happened, at the footy club. So Bevo, anyone, of course, just reach out. I love it, and more than happy to do that.
So just reach you on Instagram or on your Facebook page.
Yeah, either way, if they inbox me there, I usually see the message or reach out. Yeah, they can email me whatever they want. I'm pretty accessible, so it shouldn't be an issue. And if I miss it once, just inbox me again. Not a problem.
Well, Anthony Koutoufides, it's been an absolute blast having you on Sports Legends with Bevo, mate. Could talk with you all day, and thanks for going back and reminiscing over your career and over the good times.
Thanks for having me on, mate. I really do appreciate it.